Welcome to Pasadena City Hall and the city's 8th annual National Coming Out Day celebration. Awesome. Let's hear it for our LGBTQI brothers, sisters, siblings, and allies. Awesome. I'm Tim McDonald. I am your Pasadena Public Library Director. My pronouns are he, him, his, and my orientation is gay. Thank you for being here tonight. It's my honor to welcome you to our 8th National Coming Out Day celebration. I can't believe that 7 years ago, we held this event in the courtyard of the library. It was not a quiet day at the library. The community came out loud and proud to celebrate our inaugural National Coming Out Day event, and it's grown and grown over the years. I remember one year we moved over to Memorial Park. If you were there, you remember how windy it was that year. That was really something. Since then, City Hall has hosted this event, which is a wonderful venue for us that really affirms the city's commitment to creating a safe space for everyone in the community. And the community's value of the inspiration and courage that we see in community members who identify as LGBTQI+, living their authentic lives. It's a delight to be here with you tonight. On the topic of safety, I'll just take a minute and say, please be aware of your surroundings. Take a look around, find your closest exit at this time. You can go through the rotunda to, I love saying that, rotunda, through the rotunda to Garfield, or through the courtyard over to Euclid is another way out too. Let's see. I have some important people to recognize tonight, all of you, but I'm going to mention a few by name who are, whose by presence here today, they really are affirming the city's acceptance and affirming their understanding of how much courage it takes for somebody in the LGBTQI+ community to live their authentic life. So I wanted to thank some council members that are here tonight. Councilmember Steve Madison is here. I have not seen her, but I hear Councilmember Jess Rivas is here too. Hi, thank you. Thanks for being here tonight. And you'll hear more from him later tonight, but Councilmember Jason Lyon joins us here. Jason Lyon, thank you. Our Assistant City Manager, Brenda Harvey-Williams, is here. Thank you. As well as the Interim Director of our heroic Public Health Department, Manuel Carmona, is here. And Chief Augustin from Pasadena Fire Department is here joining us tonight too. And I may not have seen all of the many city commissioners who volunteer their time and expertise to our various city bodies, but I did see Michael Albrecht from the Human Services Commission tonight. And if anybody else is a commissioner here, I'd give them a round of applause too. Thank you. Big thank you to the departments who are hosting this event tonight, the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Community Services, Public Health Department, and the Pasadena Public Library. Thanks for all their hard work. And for our technical support, I wanted to thank the Department of Information Technology. Thank you, KPAS, for being here too. So those that can't be here in person will be able to see this event later in their own time. It's terrific. Now, my great pleasure to pass the mic to the moderator of tonight's panel, Phillip Leclair, who is the City of Pasadena's Chief Information Officer. And I'll tell you a little bit about Phillip. As I said, Phillip is Pasadena's Chief Information Officer. He leads the City of Pasadena's digital transformation initiatives, technology investment strategy, operations, and customer service. His initiatives include improving service delivery through embracing effective use of technology, creating business models for delivering new services, promoting online development opportunities for increased self-service capabilities, and leading strategic initiatives to transform and innovate. As a result of Phillip's leadership, the city of Pasadena has been recognized as one of the top 10 cities in the nation by the Center of Digital Excellence for 7 years.
Wow.
And over to you, Phillip.
Great. Thank you for that introduction. It's great to be here as well. But let me introduce to you some who are on our panel today. First up, we have Oliver Alpuche, and he was born in Los Angeles to Belizean immigrant parents. And he moved downtown in 2008 to make downtown LA his home. And in 2015, he ended up selling everything to open Redline, a local gay bar in the historic core of downtown LA. And then later in 2016, founded Downtown LA Proud with a focus on community. And in 2022, secured the first queer community center in downtown LA located at The Block. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
And our next panelist is Camila Camaléon, and she is self-described as a paradigm shifter, a bridge builder, and a queer archivist based in the San Gabriel Valley. And she is a writer, a president for the San Gabriel Valley LGBTQ Center, playfulness consultant, Zumba instructor, and a Solis Policy Institute State alum for the class of 2023. That's a lot. Welcome. And last but not least, Councilmember Jason Lyon. Jason represents Pasadena's District 7 and is the first openly gay LGBTQ+ member of the Pasadena City Council. He and his husband, the Reverend Tim Hartley, were first married in San Francisco and have worked tirelessly on multiple campaigns to build community and political support for marriage equality in the state after their marriage was invalidated. But when he's not working, and he'll tell you more about that story later, but when he's not working on the city council, Jason is an attorney with the Pasadena law firm Hahn & Hahn. So welcome, thanks.
Thank you.
Great, well, to kick off our panel here, I wanted to say that, each of us in the gay queer community has their own coming out story, from first coming out to ourselves and then later coming out to our friends and family. And while preparing for this panel, I was struck by the difference of how we've all come out in different ways and the roads that we led to where we are now. I personally came out when I was 16 to myself, and then I came out to my friends and family when I was 18 in college. But the Councilmember Lyon, you also have a very vivid story that you shared with me about coming out in a conservative and a very devout religious family. Could you share us a little bit more about the journey for you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for being here. There are seats up here if you want them. So I grew up Southern Baptist. I was born in Kentucky and raised in Kentucky and North Carolina. Grew up in a devout Southern Baptist family. So we went to Sunday school and church every Sunday, and we went to Wednesday night prayer meeting, and we were full-on Baptist. On a regular basis, you would think that homosexuality was the worst thing happening in the world in the Baptist church. So I heard it on a regular basis long before I recognized that as being something about myself. And I sort of came to awareness of my sexuality when I was probably 12 or 13. And, I thought it was the worst possible thing that could happen to me, because I truly, truly believed in a like hell paradigm, and I really it's a rough thing for a 12-year-old boy to think he's doomed to eternal damnation and fire. And so I spent the next 10 years praying to be straight, and then at some point it occurred to me, really relatively quickly at the end of those 10 years, maybe I'm praying for the wrong thing here, and maybe I need to get okay with this. And came out to my family when I was right at the end of college, when I was 22. it all went exactly not like I thought it would go. I thought my father would disown me and my mother would be cool. My father was like, yeah, I figured. And my mother, in grand Southern style, literally took to her bed for 3 days. And like there was gnashing of teeth, and so it was a long journey after that. And now I want to say my mother ended up was on the board of PFLAG in my hometown and ended up becoming a huge advocate for marriage equality, but it was a long, slow evolution for our family. Did I cover what you wanted me to cover?
Yes, absolutely. Whatever you want to cover. I still like the 3 days in bed.
So much. Well, that's my mother, but that's a whole other story.
Well, Oliver, in your story that you shared with me, you actually never came out. You actually were found out. Tell us a little bit about what happened there.
I've had this question asked before, like, oh, how is your coming out? And for me, I was lucky enough to have an older brother that came out before me. So that kind of took the focus off of kind of what I was going through in high school and finding myself, and like, let him carry that brunt. But I remember I left to college, and my mom calls me one day, and she's like, please don't tell me you're like your brother, I'll just die. And I was like, no, Mom, you're just gonna go suffer depression, but you'll get over it, you're fine. And that's literally it. And I had the same kind of experience where, my mother was not very open and accepting right away, but after a few years, I could go into detail because I have an identical twin who came out when he was like 31, and I came out, I never had to come out, I was just me. So I think throughout that time and looking at the difference between like someone who was closeted and trying to be this like perfect, like, I went to USC, I'm gonna graduate, I'm doing all these things, and it's supposed to be right, and then you have one son who's like hey, I'm here, and just seeing how happy it was, I think that was truly the like eye opener of like, I want my kids to just be happy, and from that point, it was more of like, my parents lived with me for 9 months to build a gay bar in downtown. Like, they have been the biggest supporters. They come to DTLA Proud every year. You'll see them at the bar, you'll see them there. So, in my coming out story, it's very much also when you are ready to come out, but don't expect like your friends and family to do it right away, but be there. They will be there for you. Just give them time.
They're pretty powerful. Great, thank you. And Camila, you have a very unique story as well. Not only did you come out at 16, but you came out a second time as a trans Latina woman. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, so for folks here, sometimes being TGI means coming out more than once. And so as a 16-year-old, I came out in high school as gay many years ago, had very supporting friends, had a very supportive twin brother. I think we've talked about our twins before. And in many ways, I also had a very supportive family. My mom was a different story, and I feel like Latina mothers sometimes don't tell you that they're comfortable with you. There's a way, like small ways that they show you that they'll show you. So it wasn't until years later when I came out as trans that around the age of like 21, 23, that my mother started giving me her old purses or started giving me like just clothes that she had or fragrances that she thought were too young for her to wear. And so I think in many ways coming out twice is something that I've had to experience, and also something that is that I think speaks to the trans narrative of this first time coming out specifically with sexuality, and then second time coming out specifically thinking about gender identity. And so when I came out as trans, I really had to learn myself. And I would have to say I just recently celebrated my 3-year HRT anniversary. So I'm really excited about it.
You're definitely a strong woman, inspiration to so many people, so thanks for sharing that. But moving on to kind of the day-to-day is National Coming Out Day, which started in 1988. So 35 years later, this date is still on the calendar, and we're here today celebrating again. But what's interesting is, why it's so relevant, because there's so many queer people on television. We have on movies, we have gay families, we have business owners, we have elected officials. So, what really makes this so important now? And I want to ask you this, Camila, why do you think it's still relevant today, that National Coming Out Day is so important and we still celebrate?
I think it's important that we celebrate National Coming Out Day now because I feel like although we've made so many advancements in the community as LGBTQIA folks, if you've had your ear to the ground specifically for this last year, we know that LGBTQ youth are under attack, specifically within different school districts and also within, just like within their own friend groups, navigating a playground is so different these days. And in this world of technology, I think navigating that as well as youth is interesting. And so I think coming out is important because as an adult now, and somebody who in many years looked up to the trans adults who were above me, it feels hardening to know that trans children can become trans adults. And in many ways, I was a queer and trans young person who became a trans adult through the San Gabriel Valley and the many different leadership programs that I've been a part of. So I think it's important to come out. And I think in many ways, it's also a personal journey. So whether somebody comes out or not, I think that's personal to them.
Exactly. I would also echo that, young people really need to see us, all of us. And because they need to be able to imagine the possibilities of what they can be professionally, in relationships, and be able to achieve their mind to do anything and be inspired to be their authentic self. So moving over to Councilmember Lyons, as our first openly gay council member, I'm sure you also agree that National Coming Out Day is super important. But I also heard that you and your family were featured in a national television commercial to also be out and proud. So tell us a little bit about what happened there.
So, 10 years or so ago, we got a phone call Tim got a phone call, my husband, got a phone call from a colleague from work who said, hey, my wife is a casting director and just saw a picture of your family, your Christmas card, and wants to know if you would think about being in a commercial. And we were like, absolutely not. And they were like, well, would you just have a phone call? And we were like, all right, we'll have a phone call. And so we got a call. It was for Honey Made Graham Crackers. It was directed by the guys who had just won the Academy Award for Best Documentary for Undefeated, which I loved. And the theme of the campaign was "This is Wholesome," and it was so kind of subversive, the whole idea of it, that it was all about families that we don't see. So there was a single dad family. There was in one spot. There was our family. There was an interracial marriage, and one other that I've forgotten. So we said yes to doing it. It was the only thing that felt important to me was, I think there's a whole philosophical question about whether we want to sort of engage our movement in other people's commerce. But the idea of a company really going all in on the message that this is wholesome, it was so moving to me. And all I wanted to know is that they were committed to whatever was going to happen, because there was going to be a backlash. And they said, we're committed and we're prepared, I promise. And so predictably, the commercial came out. It was the first national campaign to kind of prominently, exclusively feature a same-sex family and us with our, 2 babies. And the million moms, who were really like 50 moms in a basement somewhere with a computer, but the million moms boycotted, launched a boycott. And the Honey Maid did this whole online viral movie about that visually, it was called Love, and it was about how the amazing amount of mail they got in support and the tiny amount of mail they got that was in opposition. Their sales shot up, by the way. It was huge for them. And we got this lovely little documentary about our family that if you go online and search YouTube for Daddy and Papa, you can watch, and it is so moving. And so it felt important to stand up in that way and to say, we're literally a family with a white picket fence out front. We are the most boring suburban family in the world. We just happen to have two dads.
I don't believe
they
that.
captured that in the most lovely way. So it was a good experience for us.
Right, picking up on, sure, yeah.
Oh, thanks.
But picking up on the people who really helped move that initiative forward and trying to change the discourse has to do with a lot of the allies, because the queer community, the LGBTQ plus community really needs allies in order to help us and support us and make sure that we're visible and being talked about. And so, Oliver, in addition to visibility and the allies, we have a lot of allies here today, and I want to know, what things can we ask them to do on our behalf to be the best allies that they can be for us?
I think it's a very hard question, because we know as queer people, we know that we have to stand up to adversity every day. And how do you ask someone to do that? How do you ask someone to, walk in your shoes? The biggest thing for me, for an ally, is someone who can accept unconditionally. So, there's a lot of things that happen throughout life. There are little moments where I'm like, okay, this is where things need to change. For me specifically, many grandmas will be like, oh my God, it's such a shame that you're gay. And I'm like, no, it's not. Those things, call your family out on it. Call your sisters out on it. Call your brothers out. It's the even at my dinner table today, I still have to call my brothers out on it. And it's accepting it. Being an ally is also saying, I may have said something wrong, but I'm going to accept that it's wrong, right? I'm not going to get defensive. I'm going to be like, I could see your point. A perfect example is my brother, we were talking about the Barbie movie, and he's like, well, what if you stay at home? Oh, the people are going to think I'm gay. And? Is that a bad thing? That's where it starts. That's where I think that's the biggest impact we could make with allies, of how they carry that conversation outside of events like this. They could carry it everywhere and really make a difference.
One other idea too we've talked about is the use of pronouns. You've heard introductions with pronouns for me, him, his, and while that's not always understandable to everybody, it's a good way of just saying something and then explaining why, and for our allies to be using those terms as well, because it helps explain that not everybody fits into the exact gender stereotype.
I have one more thing to say about that, because that happens even in the queer community. We need to accept it, and if our allies accept it as well. And it's not about you. That's what I've had many conversations about. It's not when you accept someone's pronouns, or even when you put it on your signature at work, it validates people. It validates that we are different, and we're going to respect people's differences, and we're going to accept who they are. And so it's not just about, oh, let me do it. It means so much more to so many people. So that is a huge thing you can do.
Pretty easy to do. So Camila, same question for you. What other things do you think that allies could do to help us foster inclusivity?
Yeah, so I think for myself, I love to think of allyship sometimes as an active word. And I think that it's important to think of it as a verb, as something that's done and in action constantly. And so that first piece specifically around pronouns, I think is very important because people still mispronoun me even when I have makeup on. And I think that that's important to acknowledge just the way that the people are perceived these days. So I think that's one. And I think the second thing that I would like to share specifically that's really important is I love to think about ways in which folks can be allies in active ways that are even passive. So a method of that is if you own a business and maybe your restrooms are single-use restrooms, and for some reason they've been gendered for so many years, if you change all of those restrooms to gender-neutral bathrooms, it would change the culture and the dynamics of how people navigate restroom usage. And I think that we're in a period right now where trans people want to feel safe, and trans people also want to feel included in the conversation everywhere. And so an example, I just went to the Lazy Boy today, and there was a gender-neutral bathroom, and I was like, I'm gonna come to this Lazy Boy with my friends. You know, I really had to think Pasadena's really doing it, and I think in many ways Pasadena has led the charge. An example of that could also be Pasadena Unified School District just recently passed a proactive policy specifically thinking about these outing trans students that's going around in different districts in the region. And we, in the San Gabriel Valley, we just had our first district hearing at the Glendora Unified School District of forced outing policy that did not pass, but in many ways, I think it was due to many people thinking of how can they be an ally. So a mother she has 4 children, none of them are queer, came and she was like, I'm just a mother in Glendora and I'm just here to talk about this because I think it's important. And I want my kids to know that if for any reason they come out, I'm safe for them to come out too. And I think that's important.
Fantastic. Yes. Councilmember Lyon, you told me some stories before about what's it like being in the office, a legal firm, and some of the language that's used around you by your colleagues, not necessarily negative, but just those kinds of experiences that allies could learn from and how they approach being a gay dad with a gay family. Can you share some of those examples?
Yeah, so, I work at a law firm that's 125 years old, and in some ways it's currently a majority woman-owned business. It's very modern in some ways, and in some ways you can feel that it's been around for 125 years. So and I'm used to being the first. I've been the first in a lot of places in my life. So I am the first openly LGBT lawyer there. I'm the first openly LGBT partner, and I'm comfortable in that role. And they had a lot of questions for me, just like, what do we call your husband? And I was like, my husband. But I do think it's important to take your cue from people. So I often find that I will say at an event, this is my husband, Tim. And then we'll turn around a minute later and someone will say, this is Jason's partner, Tim. And so language matters, and I think marriage was one of the things that changed the movement for us, drastically. And so, recognize people's terminology. It's the same thing as their pronouns. Just respect the kind of language people use. Fortunately, people, they were great about asking me at work, how do we talk about this? And I'm a good person to ask that. Not everyone wants to take time to educate you about our experience as an LGBT person, so you got to figure out if we're open to being teachers. I happen to be really open to that, so I'm a good person to come and ask, how do we talk about this thing? And I'm happy to talk about it.
Well, kind of moving on to kind of the future and thinking about Pasadena and our regional area here and what we can do to be really doing a lot more to be more inclusive and show LGBTQ plus issues. But first, we're talking to Oliver. You shared with me that you grew up around Pasadena. In fact, your first job was at the Broadway, is that right?
The Broadway Mall.
Which is now Paseo, Colorado, just down the street.
Before that.
And so you growing up here in Pasadena, this was like your stomping ground. So what kinds of things do you think that Pasadena and the surrounding area should be doing differently or be investing in to make us more visible and more inclusive community?
Yeah. I definitely remember, being 16 and walking down Old Town Pasadena. And if I were to look back and say, what can Pasadena do to make me feel more comfortable and not wait so long to come out or be more expressive of who I am, I would say one of the things that comes to mind is like, you know, a dream for me would be like where I grew up to have rainbow flags down Old Town Colorado during Pride Month. Like, it's funny how just that alone can make someone feel so comfortable in a city. I know it's happened to me in like very conservative cities. When I go out, I'm in Solvang, and if I see a little pride sign, I was like, okay, yes, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm not gonna get cornered somewhere. But things like that make a difference. It's the businesses that, you know, support the small businesses around the area to support and acknowledge it. I know it seems, you know, rainbows everywhere, but it does help, and it does make people feel comfortable.
I would also say, you know, just programming like tonight, too.
Yes.
It's so important because whether you can make it or not, it's in the press, it's being talked about, it's being filmed, so it helps us be an inclusive place.
It's so weird to be in this spot. Just like, first job down the street, I used to come walk these halls. I used to like dream on the spiral staircase, and like to actually have a queer event in this beautiful, you know, historic site. I'm still blown away that I'm here, so thank you.
Great to have you, too. But, you know, Camila, you know, the San Gabriel Valley Center is such a growing institution for our whole region, and, you know, you're celebrating also the first Pride Tour for the whole region. You know, yes, that's a big deal. And this is just in the last few months, they have hosted 8 different very large events in various communities, as well as what you're calling 8 satellite events, a little smaller, but you've attracted something like 10,000 people from across the region to come expose themselves and be involved in and celebrate LGBTQ plus Pride, which is fantastic. And so with that, you're also, I'm sure, hearing so much from all over the community about what is needed. So I'm kind of curious from your perspective, you know, what do you think is needed here in Pasadena to advance LGBTQ plus issues and visibility?
You know, I love this question, and I think I'll start with, I think Pasadena plays a special role in the story of the San Gabriel Valley LGBTQ plus Center. If some folks don't know, we were originated here in Pasadena, and our first location was here. And now in our 3rd building, we're in the city of El Monte, and we've changed our name to the San Gabriel Valley LGBTQ plus Center. And I think the San Gabriel Valley Pride Tour this year really allowed us to see the climate, specifically in the region where we're at. At the Pasadena flag raising earlier this year, we also had 2 protesters across the street, which I think also spoke to kind of that, what you shared earlier about how much opposition versus how much pro is happening. I think it's important to know that within each culture and within each city, because each city is different. But I think this question really talks about the connection that I think our nonprofit was able to do this year. So the San Gabriel Valley LGBTQ Center partnered with 8 different city councils. That means 8 different municipalities, so many different power structures that took place, and so many people behind the scenes in order to get it done. And through this event, we were able to meet about 10,000 individuals that month. But what I think is most important is, if folks don't know this, it's Los Angeles County is estimated to be home to 500,000 LGBTQ residents. The San Gabriel Valley is estimated to be home to a little over 100,000. So what folks don't know is the San Gabriel Valley LGBTQ Center represents 20% of the population of LGBTQ individuals in LA County. And so I think 10,000 is a great number.
It's fantastic. I really admire all the work and effort and years of service that you have made into making this region even more exciting and dynamic.
Thank you. And I would have to say thank you to my team that's here and the ones that are watching this later, because it wouldn't have been without them, and I'm nothing without my team. I became the president at the beginning of the pandemic, but as I shared, I also started medically transitioning. And so being a woman leader is so different than maybe how I've navigated leadership in the past. And I think I'm still learning that. So if you're a woman leader out there trying to give some tips to this trans femme person, feel free to reach out.
So Councilmember Lyon, I read a statistic not too long ago. This came from Land Illegal. It talked about how in this last year, there's been almost 500 legislative bills that have been introduced into 47 different states that are against LGBTQ plus rights. And I'm so thankful that Land Illegal is around as a legal entity to help fight back and make sure that these bills don't see the light of day. But right here, as our gay identifying elected official right here in Pasadena, I'm sure you have a bunch of ideas and plans to make Pasadena more inclusive and supportive to LGBTQ plus community. Tell us a little bit about what your agenda is.
So thank you for talking about the bills that have been introduced in other states and in California. So I want to, not every municipality in California is on board. And we were talking about this before we came on. It's so important to understand that the struggle goes on, the war is not won, we're not done, we may never be done, I don't know. But we as a movement, we made huge strides forward in the last 2 decades, like never seen before in the world. Clearly that's true. And there is a growing movement to push us back. And we have a United States Supreme Court who is very interested in facilitating that pushback. So we are in a particularly precarious place, and particularly for trans people, are under attack all over the country. So in our city, I was surprised to discover after I came on the council that we don't have a comprehensive non-discrimination ordinance. Some people would argue that it's not entirely necessary in California, where we have protection at the state level. But if there's one thing we've learned from history, it's that protections can be taken away. And so it matters what we do here. It also matters as a statement of values, what we do here. Pasadena is a city with a long and difficult history of raising some people up and really holding some people down. And the more we can acknowledge that and own that and look to rectify that, the better. So I'm working now with the city manager and the city attorney and with Councilmember Madison on a comprehensive non-discrimination ordinance that would outlaw discrimination in any public accommodation on many grounds, including sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression. And so it'll take us a little while to get that going, but the idea is that it will actually have teeth. So it's not just you get a citation, but that there will actually be and this is the mechanism that's hard, but coming up with how we give it teeth. Particularly in housing, where we are overrepresented among the people who are discriminated against in housing, which is why you see, if you don't know the statistic, it's important to know LGBTQ youth, and again, trans youth, are wildly overrepresented in the unhoused population. So estimates that we're somewhere between 30 and 50% of unhoused youth in this country, which tells you that there is still very, very deep fear and animus against LGBTQ people in their own families. So, working on it.
Right. And probably the other one too is healthcare. Healthcare is another issue that needs to be more equitable.
Yeah, so this is a good chance to tout the work you're doing. We actually, there's a partnership between the San Gabriel Valley LGBTQ Center and our own health department in looking at the needs of our community across the San Gabriel Valley. So thank you for making that happen.
Well, this has been a very wonderful panel. I wanted to offer if anyone had any closing thoughts or any words that you wanted to share before we close out.
If you're trying to figure out how to be a better ally, or you're trying to figure out how to, maybe as a queer person, maybe even be a better accomplice, find your own spark. Think about how you can be more of an accomplice to someone. Maybe that is, you see someone at the gym and they're being misgendered while they're getting a set of weight racks. Maybe something that happens so often. And someone's just telling them these wrong pronouns, go and maybe, hey, do you want me to help you with those? And tell them the right pronoun that you think that they might use. introduce yourself. Maybe if somebody is feeling uncomfortable to go into the Starbucks restroom alone, just like ask for the code for them so they can go. Really think about ways in which you can do it in your day-to-day life, because I think active accompliceship and active allyship is how we're going to get further.
Very strong points.
I guess I just want to say thank you for being here. I grew up, I'm free will and grace gay, so there was a time when I didn't really know that there were gay people in the world, and we certainly weren't being celebrated anywhere. So it still blows my mind that people will come out on a what day is this, Wednesday? On a Wednesday evening, and
Friday.
just to think about these issues. So I am enormously grateful for your presence. Thank you.
I guess my closing words would be, whether you're an ally or a queer person, it takes one person to create change. And if you have an idea of how to be more inclusive, how to incorporate anything in your daily lives, it could affect others. So run with it. Me creating DTLA Proud was supposed to be just a block party, and it snowballed into something completely different. But you have a community of support around you, and don't be afraid to stand up. Don't be afraid to create your own table. Doesn't end here.
Well, thank you so much. This has been such a powerful panel. I want to warm appreciation to Oliver, Camila, and Councilmember Lyon, Jason. Thank you so much for spending this evening with us and sharing your thoughts about how important National Coming Out Day is and how important the LGBTQ plus community is to Pasadena. So thank you very much. Round of applause.
To our outstanding panelists and moderator, and to Camila's amazing telephone handbag, give one more round of applause to the whole group, including both. Thank you very much. While we've got you, take a couple minutes and go out to the City Hall courtyard if you haven't yet. We have an amazing group of community organizations that serve and support the LGBT plus community. And you'll take home some swag, you'll meet some new friends, and you'll find out all the great work that's happening in the community. Thanks for coming, and refreshments right behind you. Have a great night.